Appreciate you checking in with us, Raider Nation. Appreciate you jumping in to talk a little bit of Raider football with us as we're here on the porch because the Fan Cave 2.0 is still in limbo until we sell this thing.
Yeah, well, but in the meantime, we're just bringing more of your shit from the garage out here. So we will eventually have the full Fan Cave right out here in the corner of this porch until we get this bad boy sold, which may up the value.
It absolutely will up the value.
It's curb appeal. That's what the kids call it.
The kids call it curb appeal. So yeah, hopefully we'll get this thing sold soon. We've got the new place locked and loaded, ready to go, ready to start building on it. We're just got to move on from this thing first. But anyways, you don't want to hear me talk about that. You want to hear us talk about the Raiders because, you know, according to YouTube comment guy every once in a while, you guys don't talk enough about the Raiders.
Well, before we talk about the Raiders.
Yeah.
Okay, before we do that. Okay. So I just want to be on record to say that I might be the first person in podcast history to get hurt.
There's been a training camp injury.
There's been a training camp injury, absolutely. So, you know, so now that this house is, I almost blame you.
We should.
Just a little.
Oh, it kind of is. It kind of is my fault indirectly. I know.
Indirectly a little bit, yeah. So if you missed us last week, we were live from Domenico's on the square in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So we wrap up the show, raised a ton of money for the One Nation Foundation, all that stuff. We get everything loaded up into the big crate that we have that holds all of our audio, our video, all that stuff. We get it loaded up, and this box is probably what, 100 pounds?
Oh, easily. It's heavy.
Maybe a little more than that. Yeah, definitely, you'd have to pay extra on Southwest for this thing.
I do.
Yeah.
Because it's got all the mic stand bases in it that are heavy.
It's got all that, yeah. Well, old Billy Badass right here decided I'd go, I can lift that thing up into my high truck. So I slam it up there, and I hyperextend my elbow, and I tore the tendon that holds my bicep down. So maybe the first person in podcast history to get hurt off the job adjacent.
Usually your injuries are at the hands of Uncle Mosh. This is the first time we've had an equipment accident.
Absolutely, yeah. All the times that I was afraid for my life that Uncle Mosh would beat me within an inch of my life, it was my own doing. That was my true downfall. So I'll be having surgery on Friday. So we'll
see El Swago in a hard cast here.
That's it. Yeah, I'll get Murf and Michelle to sign my cast.
Hey, T's and P's for your own.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. Whoop, there we go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That is the voice of an angel.
I just love playing with this.
Hey.
There's going to be a lot of that.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
So we better start talking about the Raiders.
My life is running out of life.
No kidding.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So let's get to talking about the Raiders. Got a lot to get into. We got a lot of Raider talk to get to. As there's been a ton of news coming out.
Yes.
With not only we have the OTAs, we just talked a little bit about that already, but we got mandatory minicamp going on with only one absence, and we're going to talk about that. So as we jump into the Raider talk, first off, I want to reflect back yesterday. So here at the top of the show, we don't do shout-outs. We don't do props. There's nothing wrong with those things, but we're Italian. We like to give a little bit of respect.
Absolutely.
I want to give respect to my guy, Scott Gilbranson. Thank you, Scott.
Yes.
Scott, you're the best. Scott invited me to come on the Silver and Black Today show yesterday as part of the Fan Summit, and had an absolute great time talking to Scott.
Such a good show.
Well, thanks, man. It was so fun. Scott's so gracious to welcome me on to Silver and Black Today, and we're going to be joining those guys live again after every Raider game.
Yes.
We'll join them, including the Raiders preseason game that you and I are going to be at. We're going to be at the Raiders preseason game against the freaking Niners. We're going to be down there celebrating what the Raider dad folks are doing, speaking of respect.
Yep.
Our One Nation Foundation, which is what you guys support so generously with your donations. Our One Nation Foundation is supporting the Raider dad outing to the Niner game. And so we want to go out there because we want to see it in action.
Absolutely.
We want to meet Josh, the guy that runs the place. We want to get a chance to meet him in person for finally, and then also just see the kids, man. Want to see the kids and celebrate with the kids, and just be there for that experience and support them and lift them up however we possibly can.
Absolutely.
So definitely look for us to be out there for that. So much respect to Josh, but go back to Scott originally. I want to give respect to Scott because he's got a pretty big platform, man. That they're legacy media, like they're real world journalists. They're not, chumps on the porch.
Right.
And so for them to give us a voice and to give a platform to the One Nation Foundation, Raiders Fan Radio, in that fashion is incredibly kind and generous for Scott to do that. And he's just a blast to hang out with and talk to.
Just a good
he's
guy.
He's becoming a real good friend of ours, man.
Absolutely.
And so I really got a lot of respect for him. So thank you again to Scott Gobranson for hosting me yesterday.
Absolutely. So speaking of Raider Dad, so I talked to Josh, the guy that runs Raider Dad.
Yeah, okay.
All that stuff. So they made patches. They've made some patches, so definitely hit up Raider Dad on Twitter if you want one of those. They're sending us a few of those, so we may have a couple to throw on our jerseys here, and then they're going to send us a few extras. So maybe for a Summer of Swag thing, maybe some of our secondary prizes we'll send a patch
Very cool.
as well. So then, speaking of the Summer of Swag and the One Nation Foundation, all that stuff. So tune in the next live show. So it'll be a week from today, right?
Yeah, it'll be a 24-hour, or not 24 hours. 7 days from now.
So, yeah, hey,
what happened there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Jeez,
but yeah, so 7 days from now, 7 days from now, I will be in a hard cast, but I'll also be rocking the poker chips, man, because we are going to be the Summer of Swag, injured or not. The show has to go on.
We might even do a live show right here from the porch.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? You know what I mean? So yeah, because it's all about the One Nation Foundation.
Right.
We're raising money for that. And so next week, 7 days from now, you're going to want to tune in because you're going to have a chance to win this bad boy. This signed away Rich Gannon jersey. So you know the drill. Every $10 donation next week will get you one poker chip. If you want to do it early, onenationfoundation.net. Hit the PayPal, send us an email, let you know that you did that, and then we'll give you poker chips and all that stuff. And that will give the audio people a chance to get in the mix, and it will also let us keep 100% of that money. So Google won't take their cut on that. So definitely get in the mix a week from today on that.
Awesome, man. Yeah, definitely.
America, go to the YouTube right now.
That's right. RaidersFanRadio.com, or no, YouTube.com/RaidersFanRadio, or you can go to RaidersFanRadio.com too. You can go there and you can get cool old school shirts like the Tales from the Nation shirt that Jeff's wearing, and any other RFR merch that we have.
Heck
We
yeah.
have shirts with this logo on there, inspired by
badass.
Van Halen. So anyways, and then 100% of the money that we get there as well goes to the One Nation Foundation to support Raiders-related charities like Raider Dad. All right.
Let's hit a break.
Okay.
Hey Raider Nation, this is Max Crosby from the Oakland Raiders.
And goes down, and Max Crosby, who forced a fumble last week.
You're listening to Murf, Mosh, and Swag Jeff on Raiders Fan Radio. Thank you so much. Just win, baby.
You're welcome, Max Crosby.
Well, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Max.
You know what I love about that soundbite?
What's that?
It's Max Crosby with the
Oakland Raiders. That's
Yeah,
it.
I love that.
That's it.
I love that. Before Max was Max.
Before Max was Max,
He's
man.
he's the face of our team, him and Devontae now.
Oh, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? The absolute
For sure.
face of the Raiders.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
we got other news.
We got new shit's come to light.
New shit has come to light, bro. So speaking of the face of the Raiders,
Okay.
we want to get over, we're going to call this the controversy portion of Raiders Fan Radio.
Let's go ahead and get it out of the way.
Let's going to get it out of the way. We've got a couple of controversies that are going on. I think the controversies are more fan-led
Okay.
than team-led, but I will take the fan perspective.
Okay.
We didn't even plan this. What's the little point, counterpoint?
Deal.
I will take the fan perspective. You will take the team perspective
Okay.
on these two controversies.
Okay.
Okay, ready? All right. We signed a quarterback with a broken foot. Yes, Al Davis once upon a time drafted a punter with a broken foot, and the guy went to the Hall of Fame. But this is a quarterback with a history of injury, a history of not being able to put together a full season. If the Raiders need anything, we need consistency at the most important position in all of team sports, especially when you consider the fact that we really didn't do a ton to address maybe the rest of the quarterback room, unless we're counting on young AOC4, which who seems like a fine guy and throwing some nice passes in shirts and shorts. But does that provide a lot of certainty to us as Raider Nation? Bobby Hoyer certainly doesn't, and Chase Garber certainly doesn't. And as we know now, the likelihood of Thomas L. Brady marching his way down, and that beautiful, imagery that I had in my mind of him coming down out of the owner's box, a la Ric Flair, shedding the robe and taking the field, likely isn't going to happen. Tom has come out on numerous occasions now and said, I'm not playing. Like, it's a done deal. Like, I don't mind flying into town for the weekend to go to games, but committing to be part of a football team is a completely different story, and I'm focused on my family. So Tom Brady ain't going to happen. So I think we could throw all that out the window. So with this uncertainty, with all this, this is I'm taking the negative fan perspective.
Yeah.
This isn't even necessarily my opinion. This is just what we are hearing a lot right now. Why in the hell didn't we do something more aggressive? Why is it that the organization is choosing to put faith in a guy that has not a good track record? And if we don't have a healthy Jimmy G come week 1, we may not win a game. We may not win 4 games this year. And that's not a total indictment on O'Connell. Maybe he comes out and he lights up the world as a 4th-round draft pick. I don't know. You don't see 4th-round draft pick quarterbacks coming out and doing that very often, unless you're Brock Purdy last year, who was a complete freaking like unicorn.
An anomaly, yeah.
An anomaly, right? So, anyways, Swag Jeff. That's the fan stance. Tell me what the team is telling us. What's your opinion?
Well, Swag Jeff is just, I was employed by the Raiders, and they told me about this. So
moved you the front off after you got me busted up your arms.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
But you couldn't go on game day.
That's it, man. Yeah. I'm like Tom Brady.
You're like
in
Tom
a sense.
Brady. Yeah.
I'll just buy the team.
Yeah.
Just now that I can't play for him. This was never a concern. They knew all this going in. And had they been concerned about this, they would have done something different. The end. These guys are way more smart than we are. Yes, sometimes, we can view Josh McDaniels as a clown, and we've seen the memes, we've seen the GIFs, we've seen all that stuff that the fans have done. But here in the front office of the Las Vegas Raiders, we're not concerned about that, because we would have made other arrangements had this really been a major concern. No one seems concerned about this. And we put that addendum into the contract, but that was just a smart move by the Raiders. This was not to throw up red flags. This was not to let half a Raider Nation stroke out because of this. It was just a strategic move to say, hey, just in case, we're not on the hook for all this stuff, but everyone's confident in it. No one's worried about it because, they knew the details of what the surgery was going to be. Yes, we signed him to a deal and then sent him to the OR or whatever to get surgery done, all that stuff. But they knew what they were getting into. And, and not to mention that Josh McDaniels, we talked about, having assurance in the quarterback position or whatever. That's his guy. That's his guy. And if you're a fan of the team, that needs to be your guy too. Yeah. This notion of, we screwed up. Oh, it's a lateral move. Oh, it's this. Oh, why did we sign a guy when he has to have surgery? Oh, why do we have to sign a guy that's always hurt? He still has more wins than the last quarterback. Ooh. Still has more wins than the last quarterback, and he was hurt, and Derek may not have been hurt that often, but would you rather have a guy that is hurt sometimes and when he does play, he wins? Or a guy that never gets hurt and most times loses. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And Josh McDaniels, he shifted, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, their press conferences and the stuff they talked about, they've reshifted and they've gotten more comfortable with each other, and they brought in a guy that they're comfortable with and that has a proven track record. And yes, that guy's defense helps an awful lot. But Jimmy G doesn't play defense, he plays offense. And, and he was successful on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, so, and it's funny, and I hear some of the people will say, they're like, it was that Shanahan system. Well, Josh McDaniels has a system too.
Right.
If he's a guy that's going to thrive in a system, well, okay. Yeah. And the other thing we know about Jimmy G too is that and this is, I'm so tiptoey around even bringing up Derek anymore because freaking half of Twitter yells at me. But the bottom line, and we've heard this off the record from notable sources, okay? Whatever, that's not me trying to front or pretend like we're connected or something. It's just, that's the truth.
Yep.
We heard this off the record. And now we've also heard it through veiled comments that came out of Content Day from Andre James, where they weren't even direct shots at Derek, but there was the whole idea and concept that the quarterback that was there before did not embrace the system in the way that they wanted him to. And he checked out and changed a lot of things at the line of scrimmage that pissed them off.
Right.
And it pissed off other members of the team that on the offense because they were getting put into positions a la running the football on a play
100%.
where they didn't want to be, shouldn't have been running the football, and got blown up for losses and turned around and looked at their QB going why did you put us into that damn thing?
Right.
So there was a lot of things on there that, that stuff isn't on the surface.
Absolutely not. I mean? Well, a Vegas term, what do they say? Scared money don't make money. And, say what you want about our current situation. I don't think these guys are going to play scared.
No,
these guys know how to run the system. They know how to do it. And they're not going to play a victim. They're not going to do something. They're not going to put the team in harm's way. And That's a blessing.
Absolutely. You know, Jimmy's going to go out there. He knows what the checks, everything that's in this offense. This is what Andre James said, is that in Gruden's system, it was in terms of like the pass protections and the mic checks, where a lot of that was on the center. And Andre James said, you know, now most all of it's on the quarterback. So there's a significant responsibility shift that happened in this offense versus the last one. And they didn't care for what they saw. So what they did was they went after, to your point, they went after and they got a guy that they were comfortable with, that does embrace the system, and they know can execute it. So listen, man, I think Jimmy G's the right call. But I totally, though, at the same time, like I say before, but when you're critical of the Raiders, it's easy because as long as they suck, then people that are critical of them are right. Until Jimmy G proves that he can be healthy and be productive for a long period of time, every single critic is right.
Absolutely.
All of you are right.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing that we can do here in June to push back on that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well, and in the same fashion, you could say that, you know, kind of what we talked about on last week's show, that, you know, knowing all of the things that might happen. Jimmy G might get hurt. Why did we go all in on a guy that we don't know if he's going to be successful, if he's even going to play? You know, to push all your chips in and go all in on a guy. Why was Jimmy Garoppolo that guy? You know, you might push all your chips in for Tom Brady, for Aaron Rodgers, for a name other vet guy, or you know, kind of an iffy kind of guy. Why is it that Jimmy G is that guy? Because Jimmy G is Josh McDaniels' guy. The end. The way that we feel and the way that, you know, fans in general feel about certain veterans, you know, longtime greats, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of what Josh McDaniels feels about Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, he might have been, you know, I mean, to him, he was the one that got away. You know, I think he probably would have loved to keep Jimmy Garoppolo around longer in New England.
Well, and I think,
you know, I mean,
and there was, I mean, if we think back too, there was a lot of speculation around whether they would move on from Tom. Like, for like 3 years before they moved on from Tom, and then because Jimmy G was the guy that was gonna, you know, pull up for that spot. So that's interesting. And I mean, but Tom was Tom, and they just, you know, whatever. But that's a good point, though. I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't think that. I think I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear Josh McDaniels on that. I wonder if at what point he was ready to move on from Tom versus Bill. Like, I wonder if there was any. Because Bill's the one that makes the call, right? So I wonder if there was any conversations there if Jimmy was, or if Josh McDaniels was kind of like, you know what, like this is the guy, the next, you know what I mean? The next one to take the reins, let's move on with him. Yeah. And, you know, and if you think about it, of course, there's a lot of injury issue, and I'm not trying to sit here and talk about the Patriots, but if they would have hung on to him and let Tom go, think about how much better the Patriots situation would be now versus, and for the past handful of years since Tom's been gone. I don't know, that's interesting to think about. Anyways, but let's move on from that. Okay, here we go. One more controversial point.
Sure.
I'm the fan, Jeff.
Okay.
Josh Jacobs is boycotting training camp. This idea that he hasn't signed his tenure and it's no big deal that he's not there is a complete cover-up. He's boycotting. He's pissed off. He's going to demand a trade. He's probably not going to be a Raider. Let's see. What else? What other extremist sky is falling opinions have I heard out there? That this is it's an embarrassment to the organization. He did the right thing because they didn't pick up his fifth-year option, and all he did in response was go out there and lead the league in rushing yards. And the Raiders are being disrespectful by not offering him a lengthy contract to honor what he did last year.
Yeah,
you know, I feel like I just threw up in my mouth.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, and sometimes I want to jump in as a fan, but you know, I am a part of the front office, so it's tough for me to do that. But you know, Josh Jacobs has until July. We're not concerned. We're not concerned. I've talked to Josh McDaniels. He is not concerned. He had a press conference yesterday. He's proud of Josh. He loves Josh as a person. He loves him as a running back, and he cannot wait to see him back in the facility. They're doing the right thing. They're talking. They're working things out, and whether he signs that tender this year and then he gets his bag next year, whatever, no one's concerned about this. And we saw Josh Jacobs make a post when he changed his number. Now he's JJ8. He wasn't rocking an Alabama jersey. He wasn't rocking a, you know, whatever jersey. He posted a picture of him in a Las Vegas Raiders uniform. He good.
Yeah,
He good.
yeah.
You know, he may be boycotting as some fan, but it's not boycotting. He's just not there yet. He can't be there because he's the only Raider that's not under contract right now. There'd be no reason for him to be there. He legally couldn't do anything there.
That's the thing that cracks me up about
that would be like you or I walking into the facility and people pissed off because we're not practicing with the team because we're not under contract with the Raiders. They're not liable to do that. I mean, we could sue them if we got hurt on, you know what I mean?
It's funny because I think a lot of people.
Sorry, my fandom came out a little bit.
Yeah, boy, you're awful passionate there and emotional,
I know, right?
for a front office.
For a front office guy.
But no, I think it's interesting that I think that some folks are mistakenly considering this like a training camp holdout, where I'm not going to show up because I'm unhappy. That's not the case. This isn't Le'Veon Bell. He's not under a contract and want to restructure it, so he's not going. Mm-hmm. He hasn't signed his tender. He's technically not under contract, and since you're technically not under contract, he can't be there, but the Raiders retain the rights to that contract, so he can't go anywhere else either.
Right.
So at a certain point, Josh Jacobs is going to have to decide, do I want to show up and play football for Las Vegas Raiders when I have to and accept the deal that I've been given and sign the tender, or do I want to stay at the house? And if he stays at the house, the Raiders still retain his rights.
Right.
That's what the franchise tag is.
And he couldn't play anywhere through the course of the season, and, say what you will about, I mean, first off, $10 million is nothing to stick your nose up at. I mean, I think that's a very fair number for him to get paid this next season. I think...
Isn't it 12? I thought he was 12.
Or maybe it is 12. Okay, even better.
12.
Even better.
The non-exclusive was... Because he got the non-exclusive tag?
He got the non-exclusive. I guess the exclusive tag would have been 10. The non-exclusive is 12 or whatever that number is.
I don't remember which one
but
it was.
But it's maybe really...
Because the Raiders, he can negotiate with other teams and the Raiders have the right to match that offer.
They have the right to match it or to let him walk to that other team. But the Raiders get 2 first-round picks. Yeah. Which no team is going to do that for a guy like Josh Jacobs. Sorry. I don't think they would do it for any running back in the league because unfortunately for running backs, the market's just not there.
You're not doing that for any non-quarterback.
Right. I mean, and I think, in the grand scheme of things, I wish that the running back market was more for the running backs because the running back,
I feel bad for him.
The running back position is such an important position in the league, and you only see a handful of teams that really nail it, knock it out of the park. And the Raiders are one of those teams, but the market for running backs just isn't there right now. And the teams, all of the Raiders, hold all the cards in that. So if Josh Jacobs decides, I don't want to play ball, you're also losing a year of your career, and now the Raiders hold even more of those cards. Be like, bro, what are you doing? Okay, go waste a year of your career, and you only have a couple
prime because
absolutely. Well, and look what happened. Look what happened to Le'Veon Bell. You brought that guy up. He held out. He wanted more money. He ended up sitting out the whole year. And what'd he do? He came back the next year all fat and shit and just was not very good. And what's he doing now?
He's like fourth string.
He played for the Chiefs a couple years ago and was riding the bench. Wasn't a starter or anything.
I figured he was long out of the league or something.
A couple years ago. I mean, it was last year or something
like that. He's got to be your age.
No, he's a little younger than that, I think.
I don't know. We had to look that up.
Yeah it doesn't matter because I don't like him.
But point being on, and I think it's a critical point, is that the whole reason that running backs are in this position to begin with is because their shelf life of being effective is so short. It's 4 to 6 years, maybe 7 tops.
Yeah, probably 6 or 7 at a high level.
At a high level. So I mean, it's to get that second contract, which is what the whole it's I don't know why I keep bringing up presidents here lately, but it's like a president that gets elected, their first term is to bank on getting elected for the second term, right? It's like these rookie contracts now. These guys are trying to earn that second contract. It's like everything they do in that first 4 or 5 years is to get that bag for that second contract,
right?
Because that's where you really can make money, But when you look at running backs, heck, their value is almost gone by the time you get to that 5th year option. By the time you get to the end of that thing, their playing value is starting to decline. And so it's a very unfortunate scenario.
And until the Players Association steps forward and says, hey, look, we need to change this, the running backs are being treated unfairly, unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast, and Josh Jacobs may fall victim to that. And but or you can just take your $12 million and you can come back and play, and give the Raiders an opportunity to maybe free up some more money, maybe next offseason, and then we'll give you a couple year bag. You know what I mean? Help us help you. And I think at the end of the day, I feel very confident that that's going to happen.
I think it's going to be done.
Yeah.
It's going to be done. All right, let's go ahead and hit a break, Swag Jeff, then let's get into some content day.
Nobody enjoyed a good Donnybrook more than sixth-year linebacker Phil Villapiano.
This is Phil Villapiano, and you're listening to Raiders Fan Radio.
And speaking of Phil, right? So we're about to talk about Media Day.
Yeah, and you know what though? Let's just go ahead and jump into the thing we were talking about pregame here, in relation to Phil Villapiano. Oh, are you going to bring up something completely different?
I don't know.
You go.
Okay. Well, I just thought it was so cool because the first two clips that I just played was Max Crosby and Phil Villapiano. I think it's really cool that not only has Max Crosby become the face of this franchise basically, and will be for a long, long time, but the reverence that Max Crosby has for the legends that come back for these alumni days and all this kind of stuff. I think it's really, really, really cool because Max, they're shooting this video, right? And it's bouncing all over Twitter and stuff like that. So I'm sure everyone has probably seen it already. But they're talking to Phil, right? So they got the camera on Phil, and Max comes running over, and Phil's like, "Hey, baby, come over here, man. Hey, buddy." And Max is like, "Man, I'll never forget my rookie year. You coming in and talking and change my mindset, change the way I play this game, and and taught me what it meant to be a Raider and stuff like that." What more do you want from that? That's so badass.
It's so badass. Scott and I talked a little bit about that on the Silver and Black Today show about how, the mystique of the Raiders and everything that was built that made them such a unique franchise, made us the villains of the leagues, and the edginess and all the things that Al Davis created. You can't duplicate that in 2023. You just can't, because the rules are different. Everything about the game is not everything about the game, but a lot about. Oops. Jeff scared a bird, so everything about I said everything again. A lot about the game has changed and shifted, so you can't take on that villainous persona in the same way. But I would love to see this new young group of Raiders, not only guys like Max Crosby, obviously, who are already doing this, but the rest of the guys that are coming in and being part of the organization too, for them to be able to embrace what the Raiders were and bring some of that for whatever that can look like in 2023. Seeing Max chop it up with Greg Townsend was super cool because Max is chasing after that record.
Absolutely.
And just they obviously Art Shell was there, Ted Hendricks was there, Plunkett was there, and Biletnikoff, the legend. There's so many amazing players. Mike Haynes, I believe, was there. So many amazing legends were there, and I hope that these young guys, and the Raiders have always done this. This isn't a new thing for them to bring in alumni. They've always, the Raiders honor their past and their legends better than anybody in
absolutely.
In the sport.
One of the highlights right there that you talk about, you're naming all those players. Talk about Michael Mayer standing next to Dave Casper, talking right there, chopping it up. The two guys, the two Notre Dame grads, and all that stuff. And Michael Mayer's making these videos, going, "So proud to rock this '87 for Raider Nation," blah blah blah. He gets it.
He gets it. Yeah, that's cool, man. So I'm going to look forward to that because, again, I talked about this with Scott. We don't know what the hallmark of this team is going to be yet. We know what Gruden's hallmark was. We know what his kind of stamp on the organization is. Right now, can you tell the story of the Raiders and not tell the story of Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, in this regime? Right now, you don't have to tell their story because it's not very significant to this point. I think that front office-wise, yes. And so I guess you can maybe include Dave in that, although Dave's still got a long way to go before we really can do I think a fair job of evaluating what his tenure has been with the Raiders. But early on, seeing what Sandra Douglas Morgan has brought to the organization, I think that is huge, and her significance to the leadership that she's brought to the Raiders already. I think that's a very definitive moment in the history of the franchise.
Yes.
So you already have to tell that story.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, but where is it in terms of the players and these coaches and whatnot? We haven't gotten there yet, and so we'll see what it looks like. But I'm gonna trust that And I'm going to hope that they can, again, glean from these guys, the legends, whatever they can to be able to impart that in any kind of a way. And so,
yeah, and can I tag that?
Yeah, please.
Can I tag that? Yeah. So, and I thought it was really interesting that you said that, and because you talked about kind of what we talked with Fred about is, yes, we painted these lines. Now go paint your own.
Now go paint your own.
We gave you the blueprint. Now you create your version of that. And I think that that's really important. And so, yes, right now the Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniel story isn't imperative when you talk about the Raiders' history, but they're trying to create their own version of it, and I think it's really crucial. We heard Davante Adams a couple weeks ago in his presser talk about how the great career that he's had. He's was with the Packers for a long time and all that stuff, but he said that this season feels different than anything because this front office, he said he's never had the relationship with the front office the way that he's had. He hasn't had coaches, GMs, front office people come to him for his opinion on things. So the front office is really using these veteran guys, these, skill players, these guys that are important to the league. Because right now you can't tell the story of the NFL without talking about Davante Adams.
Absolutely.
One of the best, wide receivers to do it. So, so you look at it, they're looking at a guy like him that goes, hey, what do you think we should do here? Where do you think the team needs to go? Stuff like that. So they're building the new legacy of the Raiders by committee and by the people that are actually got their boots on the ground. And I think that that's so badass. And I think they do that with Max and a couple of those other guys too, because they're really building what is this new Raiders going to look like, and they're building it together. And I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I dig it. That's a good point, Swaggo. So speaking of some of these young guys that are coming in, and we're going to get to content day, but I want to take a little bit of a divergent because we were talking about Phil Villapiano, piano. I always say piano because that's what I said growing up, but it's piano. We're talking about Phil Villapiano, and of course wore the number 41, which you don't see a lot of players wearing number 41. Phil rocked that 41 though, man, in silver and black, and was such an amazing Raider. Really brought so much attitude. Of course, the Soul Patrol was the identity really of those Raider defenses. But Phil Villapiano was a huge part of that, and he was like one of the first players to be like a hybrid safety linebacker. I think by position designation he was a linebacker, but he was a smaller frame guy, played a lot further off the ball. You think about the interceptions that guy made, but at the same time he could come up and lay wood, you know what I mean, and force fumbles and like he did so famously in the Super Bowl. So a guy like Phil Villapiano really was iconic to those Raider defenses. So Swag, Jeff, and I, before we started today, we were talking about some of the young players coming in, and we were really digging in on this whole linebacker situation because a lot of again, if we want to go back point, counterpoint, common, I think, or not common per se, but I'd say a very widespread fan opinion right now.
Totally.
Is we didn't do enough at linebacker. We just hadn't done enough at linebacker. Why haven't we traded for Patrick Queen? Why haven't we done something to address what our needs is clear deficit at linebacker that frankly we've had since Kirk Morrison, Thomas Howard, and Robert Thomas were around.
Right.
We've had a major deficit at linebacker.
And then when we do have flashes in the pan like a Denzel Perryman, then see you bye.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah. So we really hadn't done a ton over, forever. Other than drafting Rolando McClain, and that didn't work out so hot. So anyways, they really hadn't done a lot. I think now, though, after, and this is me maybe just drinking the Kool-Aid, and if that's what your opinion is, then let us know. But I think after watching this content day, watching these press conferences, actually doing a little bit of homework on some of these players that they've brought in to play linebacker, I think they're set, I think they're happy, and I think we are way underrating the value and the impact that these young players that we have brought in are going to have. Talking about 41, I'm talking about, I call him Mickey Spillane because I'm not that old, but Robert Spillane comes in from the Steelers, wears 41, looks like freaking Phil Villapiano when you watch the way he plays.
Yes.
He plays a little bit of outside linebacker, but he'll play off the ball. The guy can play great in coverage. He's got picks. He can come up, and we know he can come up and hit because look what he did to Brandon Bolden in the game last year against Pittsburgh.
We've
watch
seen
this-
highlights of him putting Derrick Henry right on his back, which is no easy feat.
Absolutely, dude. Like, go watch Robert Spillane's highlight reel. I'm telling you, a guy who can scrape across the line of scrimmage, dart in there. The guy reads. He's incredibly intuitive. Like, this was a great signing. And originally, everyone's thinking, well, this is going to be our middle linebacker because, as Josh McDaniels was saying in his press conference, that Dave Ziegler during Content Day was talking about Spillane wearing the green dot, which is, the signal caller on the defense.
Right.
Well, then Josh McDaniels says it's Divine Diablo, who, by the way, put on 10 extra pounds of muscle and is a freaking beast. And I think he's going to be the freaking star of our defense this year. I'm calling it right now.
Love it.
What day is it today? Mark it down. Divine Diablo is going to be our MVP of our defense this year. Dudes, and so McDaniels was talking about him wearing the green dot.
Yep.
I don't even think they know which one of these two guys is going to be it, but I would bank on Diablo. And then, by the way, we've got a few other young guys, like Amari Burney, who we drafted to come in.
Yes.
But also another incredibly underrated player that I wasn't really hip to until Jeff brought it up earlier today. Dig in a little bit on Drake Thomas, linebacker out of NC State. The knock against him in college was that he was a little slow in pursuit and he was undersized. Well, we looked the guy up. He's 6 foot, 230 pounds.
Right.
It's like most linebackers around the league. Like, he's in the 6'30 range and he's in the 6 foot range.
Yeah, he looks like Will Compton running around.
He looks like Will Compton running around out there. Last year, the guy had 101 tackles, 19 of those for loss, and 7.5 sacks, because, he can blitz too. And in his career at NC State, 293 tackles, 46 tackles for loss, 19 sacks, 4 picks, and 13 passes defended. This dude is freaking legit on the outside.
He's legit.
So your number 1 and your number 2, Jeff, are going to be freaking Diablo and Spillane. The rest of these young guys are going to fill back in around there.
Yep.
And and by the way, we got Nate Hobbs to play the corner because a lot of they're going to be a nickel more than anything. And when you watch that Steeler defense, when you watch the cut-ups of Spillane, there's only 2 linebackers back there.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically like a 3-4 set. Like, that other linebacker's playing down the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
So he's just standing up back there. So him and Diablo are going to be standing up out there, or even if they have another linebacker that's down rushing the passer, if they're in more of a nickel situation, and that's Hobbs, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, this, I see it. Now, and so I think that we have way underrated and underestimated their ability to address not only the defense as a whole, because when you listen to them at Content Day, they're happy with Jerry Tillery. They're happy with the development of Matthew
100%. Butler.
They're happy with the development of the interior of the offensive line. Oh yeah, we drafted Tyree Wilson to rotate in and out with Chandler and Max, and to keep fresh legs on our pass rush going the whole time.
Yeah.
Marcus Epps is going to be wearing the green dot. He's going to be a leader on this defense.
Yeah.
We know it. I mean, look at the guys who brought in the second. I forgot to bring my depth chart right now, but like, they're happy with what they've done. They're not going to make any major changes.
Absolutely.
And I think that, like, out of all the position groups, linebacker was the biggest one that I'm guilty of, and I think a lot of Raider fans are guilty of looking at it and going, well, shit, we didn't do anything. Well, no, we did a lot, and when you dig into what we did, there's a lot of good news in there.
Well, I feel like, and I agree with that. I think the common theme, it seems like, with this team right now is getting their guys that they feel like fit into their scheme. So you bring in a guy like Spillane, you bring in undrafted free agents like Thomas and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of them, the common theme right here is, maybe they're a tiny bit undersized or whatever, which I think that's bullshit anyway, because,
So was Darren Sproles.
100%. There's a billion players in the league that you can name that, like, didn't have the best, they're not the cookie cutter version of who whatever draft analyst says it should be or whatever. But, like, I feel like the common theme with a lot of these guys is they're dogs, man. And I'm all about bringing in those kind of guys like that. Everyone talked about, Nate Hobbs, he's got that dog in him. He's got that dog in him. When we look at Dean Thomas, that guy's got dog in him, bro.
Drake Thomas.
Drake Thomas, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But like, you look at a guy like that, and Spillane, obviously that dude's a friggin' hard hitter, but we watched highlights of him today, like, covering tight ends and like covering them well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I'm like, and we're watching them like, wow, I see that on, play one-on-one versus Kelsey or something like that. They're bringing in guys that this team needs in situational football. And then to tag kind of what you said about the green dot, I think it's a beautiful thing that they're not sure who's going to wear the green dot, because they're going to rotate it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you need to have a bunch of guys on the field that is ready to wear that green dot, because the more leaders you have on that field on defense, the better off you're going to be. Because what happens when, you know, knock on wood, Divine Diablo goes down again, or you know, or whatever, and he's wearing the dot, like, you know.
That's what happened to our boy Compton, because Taylor Whitehead was our guy that's, okay,
Yes.
so there you go, was another guy. We tried to bring in a linebacker, a middle linebacker to shore up the defense. Didn't work out so much. Of course, he battled through a little bit of injury and whatnot too, but Comp was there to pick right up and just handle it. And it was such a, you know, and this is not just sitting around here and blow smoke about Will Compton, but if you look at that season, I think it's an incredibly salient point that you're making, Jeff, because at the time that Tyre Whitehead went down and Comp stepped in and wore that green dot, he was the Raiders' leading tackler for those
in
9
half
games.
the season.
In half the season.
Yeah.
Like, he had a huge impact, and so it was massive to have depth to that, of having that ability of guys that, not only do you have 2 linebackers that were hearing it, but now again, Marcus Epps wearing that green dot. So we have 3 guys effectively that can run the defense.
100%, man. The more leaders that you have that can help some of these young guys, get them in the right place, do all that stuff. Because, yeah, if one goes down, next one steps up, and you don't miss a beat in any of this stuff. And I think that that's really good, too. And I think it's really good that the Divine feels the confidence from the coaching staff as well. You know, Diablo, I mean, they're all in on Diablo, man. Like, they're all in. Like, they talked about yesterday in the press conference with McDaniels. You know, what's your thought about Diablo wearing the green dot? And Josh is like, I'm very fond of him. I really, really like him and stuff like that. And, you know, and kind of compared like to where he was last year to where he is this year, he was like, you know, there were some young guys, I saw him walk up to Diablo last year and ask him a question, and Diablo didn't know the answer. And like, and he goes, and that's a bummer, like when that happens. But now Diablo's like, you know, directing traffic out at OTAs and stuff like that. So like, what a beautiful thing that is.
Yeah.
And so, and to tag all that to say that, you know, when everyone said, you know, well, we didn't address the positions enough. We didn't bring in enough people to address linebacker. You know, I think Coach McDaniel says something that I think everyone can really get behind when he said, you know, getting better doesn't always come through acquisitions. We're proud of our guys, and now we have these guys that have been in the system for more than a year. You know, yeah, you can bring in guys and trade for people all day long, you know, and yeah, you might get guys that maybe on paper are better guys, but when you have guys that are in the same system for a couple years, they get better in that system. So you could, instead of saying linebacker, you could say offensive line. We didn't do really shit to address the offensive line, but they're confident in the offensive line that we have now. They're proud of Illuminor. They love Brandon Parker, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, so yeah, it doesn't always come from bringing in all these guys and then having to cut, you know, some of your tenured guys in this team, even though it's only 2 years. But like, you know, I'm telling you, man, I'm so encouraged after these last couple days really digging in.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready. I'm ready.
Me too, because I'm, you know, going into this. I mean, I just talking about with Scott the other day. Like, I was kind of pessimistic on this season, like for the first, which is rare for me, because I'm always the guy that looks for something to cheer for, to root for. But I was feeling a certain kind of way about where this thing was going. But and look at, I don't know, you could blame it on the Raiders marketing or whatever you want, but like, I'm buying in, man. I'm starting to come around on it. An interesting point that you made too about the offensive line is that was such a huge point of contention for fans. Is that, oh, we didn't, you know, draft enough, or we didn't sign this person or that person or trade or whatever. When you listen to Andre James in his press conference and even at Content Day, he is so thrilled. He's like, I go into the room and I'm looking around and it's our guys.
It's all of our guys.
It's all of our guys. He's like, this has never happened before.
Yes.
To where it's all the same guys there.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, and you hear things about like, you know, offensive lines needing to gel and like continuity and all that kind of stuff. I think that at certain points we can overplay that, but as a collective, it's not necessarily like the 5 guys. And the person that hipped me to this was Taylor. Listen to Taylor talk about playing offensive line. I know he's not a Raider, but the point being though is that when he was asked about how important is it for you to gel with your other guys, and he said, well, it's not really as important because I know what my job is. I know what that guy's job is. And if they rotate another guy out to come in and do that job, I'm going to expect that he knows how to do his job too. If anything, the continuity comes from being able to communicate up and down the line.
Yes.
Like that's what they all have to be able to do effectively. But he's like, if we're doing what we're doing in our room, then the guys coming in and out should be plug and play. So it's not like you got to gel with the same 3 or 5 guys. But as a collective, as an 8 guys or 9 or however many offensive linemen they're carrying, that's where that stuff, and you could just see the joy in Andre James's face. He's genuinely happy. And granted, I know these are grown men playing a kid's game for millions of dollars, so it's not hard to be happy playing in the NFL. But you seeing that joy, that youthful glee in his delivery and his awesome.
Well, take offensive linemen out and put what you do for a career. Do you work better when you're happy or when you're just like, I know how to do my job, and any professional, if you're a pro, you know how to do your job, and you expect the guy next to you working that he knows how to do his job. But when everyone's getting along and everyone's having fun and everyone's having a good time together, and you're happy when you come into the office, like, don't you perform better? I do.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah,
100%. No, so that I think was really interesting, and really happy to hear that from those guys. And to get back to Josh McDaniels, and then take us to a break. We'll close this thing up a little bit. I guess you got one more thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to close it up. I want to give credit to Josh McDaniels. Dude's has been under a lot of fire from Raider fans.
Sure.
Me included, okay?
Yeah.
And when I've always felt that as a coach, it's egotistical or minimum, we'll just go with ego. It feeds your ego to have your system and to go into a new environment, and this is regardless of any sport, frankly, to go into your new environment and say, okay, now we're going to take this system and impart it here. And my expectation is that everybody fit into my system, and if you don't, we're going to move on from you. I've always been a fan of coaches that come in, address what they have, and then build their system to be able to take advantage of the talent that's already in the room. Because then you avoid these long rebuilding processes and whatnot. And I think that it shows a little more creativity and talent from a coaching perspective to be able to develop something that fits the personnel that you have. I know people hate it when I talk about the Patriots, but no one does that better than Bill Belichick. You see that offense from the time he started winning Super Bowls with Tom Brady to today, you see their offense mold and change based on what they have. When they had Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, that was the focal point of that offense, was 2 tight ends that were going to kick your ass. When you had guys like Welker and Amendola and they were going to work the slot. Those are the guys going to kick your ass. When they had, whatever different running backs, you think
Randy Moss and all those things.
Exactly. Or not Deion Branch? He was the Super Bowl MVP for them. But who was the running back? Was it Deion Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. You look at they were so versatile, and I always thought, okay, so when Josh came in, I thought, why is this guy that came from this, previous regime where it was nothing but fluidity, it was nothing but changing the way that they played defense, the way that some years they were just total zone teams, other years they were lock up freaking man-to-man teams. They were they've done so many different versatile things. Why is it that you would be married to this quote system of yours and then want to jettison all these players and then take the time to bring in new players on? So I wasn't a fan of that. Okay. That said, when I still think that there is a component to that, because you're going to have your philosophy, whatever that thing may be. You're as a coach, you're going to have your philosophy, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having that, because that's what makes some coaches good and some coaches bad.
Sure.
Okay, we heard from McDaniels in his press conference that they were willing to look back on what they did wrong last year and change. And it's ego doesn't drive change. When you think you've got it all figured out, you're not changing anything. You're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do, because what I'm going to tell you to do is the right way to do it. People that are a little more, selfless, or in this case, I think even contrite, where he's like, we did some things that did not work last year, and we're going to change and do different this year. And I think that we're going to see, at least I don't know, but I'm guessing, we're going to see a little bit more of a hybrid to what McDaniels and this offense does. And even the whole team is in general, they have their overarching philosophies, but as his words were, we can't do things maybe like we did it 10 or 12 years ago.
Absolutely.
We have to do things different. And so for him to take that and to be willing to basically admit that he was wrong, you know what I mean? For lack of just coming out and saying it, basically saying that he kind of blew it and that we're going to change and be better. Every time I want to like kind of go like, oh my gosh, they pull me back in. Like, I mean, I'm kind of on board with this guy. And save your freaking bootlicker comments and Josh McDaniels apologist and all that kind of. Look, the guy's the head coach of our football team, and I want us to win. I want Josh McDaniels to be the best coach in all of football because I want the freaking Raiders to win.
Well, and
it's not me like freaking sitting here like, telling you that Josh McDaniels is God's gift to coaching. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm telling you is that I'm going to root for the guy until he's not coaching for our team anymore.
There you go.
And then I'll freaking stop rooting for him, and then I'll be hyperly critical. But as of right now, I got to dig in to the positive things. And when not only is he showing us something positive, but you're talking about an incredibly, at times, speaking of Bill Belichick, arrogant position. Head coaches can be real arrogant. Nick Saban, like that doesn't mean that they're, you kind of got to be a jerk sometimes as a head coach. So to have a guy like this that's being willing to go, you know what, we didn't get it done, and we're going to be different. What else do you want from him?
What else would you
what else would you rather hear than that?
Exactly. And if you're not drinking, people call you bootlicker and all that kind of stuff. If you're not drinking the Kool-Aid, go look on the shelf. There's a bunch of other flavors. Maybe you go drink some of that, because if you're wearing this, you should be drinking that Kool-Aid. You should be licking the boots just a little bit. Because like you said, the end goal, no matter what, whether it's the coaches, whether it's the fans, we all want the same thing, right? So let's all be one well-oiled machine and all go towards that, goal together and stop trying to drag and butt this or butt that. No, man, just buy in. Just buy in. Just, maybe something nice will happen. Have your glass half full, you know what I mean? Like, just, think of it like that.
It doesn't mean you have to accept mediocrity. And
absolutely.
And that's the thing that I got, I get response like, well, if we just get, 7-8 or, 9-8, or if we just win 10 wins, like, that's just mediocrity, and the Raiders are just win, baby, and we should be looking for champion. I agree. We should be wanting championships. I totally agree with that. And I'm not telling you that mediocrity is acceptable. It's not acceptable to me in my personal life, and sure shit isn't acceptable in my fandom either. But at the same time, until the thing plays out, that's the thing, is that right now we're not 9-8. No. Right now we didn't start the season 1-4. Those things haven't happened. So let's not be so pessimistic that we go, well, that's automatically just going to be a thing. And let's embrace it. Look, if we're going to be critical of someone, we should also be willing to praise them when they've taken action that shows otherwise.
Absolutely.
And as of today, Josh McDaniels in his press conferences is owning his failures and willingness to change.
Right.
Like,
what a concept. That's fantastic. And and I think that this coaching staff, and we'll move on in just a second, but I think this coaching staff and Josh McDaniels and all that stuff kind of felt like how we felt a year ago today. When they brought in, we just got Devontae Adams. We've got all these pieces. We've got, Derek Carr and Devontae. They're best friends. They're going to sling it down the field. We're going to win 13 games this year. We're going AFC Championship or bust kind of mentality. And then the shit hit the fan. And by about week 3 or 4, we were like, oh shit! Like
walking out of Nissan Stadium,
absolutely walking. Exactly.
We were down
just
bad.
bad. So starting the year, and well, maybe this, and well, maybe that. Well, then we got to the end of the season, and we were like, man, we were wrong about this team. And Josh McDaniels and that coaching staff said we were wrong about the way that we thought that this was going to go as well. So, and now we kind of, and we can admit that, like, wow, we screwed up, but thinking that way. Well, they did the same thing. I
think they kind of bought their own hype, man.
I think so too. They drunk their own Kool-Aid.
Drunk their own Kool-Aid, But we talk about that all the time. Like, there's, it's like the Bible says, pride comes before the fall. When you start buying into yourself. Now, I'm not talking about being confident. Confidence is an incredibly important thing when it comes to success.
Yes.
But I'm talking about buying into your own hype. That you've got it all figured out. And this is, again, when I go back to what I'm talking about. That you've got it all figured out. That, we did enough. we are good to go. Let's go win this AFC Championship game. I'm with you. I think they thought that too.
Yeah.
And probably had a little bit of arrogance going into it, you know, and they got humbled real freaking quick, you know?
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hi, this is AJ calling from the Las
Hi.
Vegas Raiders. You're listening
Hi.
to Murf, Mosh, and Swag Jeff on Raiders Fan Radio. Just win, baby.
So last thing I got for you, Swag Jeff, going
Yeah.
back to Content Day a little bit.
Okay.
And much respect to the Raiders on Content Day. So Content Day is the day that the Raiders show up and they take pictures with their lightsabers and all their
Right.
pump up videos and all that kind of stuff, you know. So they're doing all that, and so JT the Brick is there, your boy Q is there, and Eric Allen is there, and they do 3 hours. Basically, they combine their radio shows on Raider Nation 920. They do 3 hours of content, and not only is it them kind of like breaking down position battles and groups and stuff, but then they're bringing in people in rotation through for interviews. They bring in Dave Ziegler.
Yeah.
And Dave, after listening to Dave, this is when I first realized that, there is no more major changes to be had. We're not trading Hunter Renfrow. Like those kinds of moves and all these things that we want to speculate on as fans, I didn't get that sense at all from Ziggs. Now, he could be the ultimate poker player and not letting us know what his intention is to do with his hand, but if I don't think there's anything going to happen. I think this is the team. Then we're gonna have 53 out of the 90 that's there now, or 89 anyways, and I think this is gonna be our Raiders for 2023. So I really did get a strong sense of that, but it was a really good interview. I really like Dave Ziegler a lot. I was a fan of Mayock, and I thought that Mayock got a little bit of a raw deal because he got linked to basically all Gruden's decisions. In terms of personnel, where I think that when you look at some of the Mayock decisions, other than Leatherwood, which he owns that one, that he blew it on the Leatherwood one. But Mayock, I mean, you look at some of his later round picks, man, he did pretty solid. There's a reason Nate Hobbs and Hunter Renfrow and you know what I mean, and Max Crosby and like you know what I mean, like so there's some solid ones in there. But anyways, so I wasn't like I didn't really get it with Ziegler right away. But now, after listening to him talk for a while, I really like him, man.
Yeah.
And, and our GMs, I wasn't a huge fan of Reggie McKenzie. Reggie just kind of like stayed in the shadows the whole time. He had a good drafter with Derek and Khalil and Gabe Jackson.
Sure.
But the rest of his drafts, with DJ Hayden and stuff, like there was a lot of funky draft picks in there. Of course, and then before that it was Al.
Right.
So now having Dave, I feel like that Dave's more like the head of I feel like I'm listening to like one of our corporate speakers.
Yeah.
You really get the sense that the guy's, he's really buttoned up. He really knows his shit. And he's really just like well thought out. Like everything is so calculated that they're doing down to the Jimmy G restructuring at the last second. Like you get the feeling like he's the kind of guy that just doesn't miss a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And so it's ultimately going to come down to his ability and his team's ability to evaluate talent that's going to determine the success of this team, or a big part of it anyways. But I got a lot of confidence in Dave, and I really like listening to him speak. So and I like that he's front and center, that he's out there a lot too.
Yeah.
I really like that. So that was really good. But then they brought Max Crosby through, sat down and talked to Max for a while. That was a really good interview with Max. And just, hearing him talk about stuff we've kind of already talked about a little bit. And then Andre James was the other one. That was such an insightful interview, hearing him talk about the relationship between quarterback and center and just kind of, and their ability to like rotate in and out of positions. That also goes back to something Dave was talking about too, that like their value in players is being able to do a multitude of things. Why would I pay you an exorbitant amount of money to just be able to do one thing unless you're exceptional at that one thing? You know what I mean? If you're exceptional at that one thing, great. But if you can do multiple things, like play a hybrid safety linebacker, like being a rotational lineman that can play guard, that can play tackle, that you can swing out, do those kinds of things. It was really informative. So anyways, I just want to give respect to the folks at Content Day. That was really neat. It was almost, I felt like watching a convention or something. Like, just seeing like all these, like seeing the leadership and the players and the media and like everything. I just thought it was a really neat event for the Raiders to do that. And so if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's on the YouTubes. And I had it while I was out driving around, working, because we work out in the field. And so I was driving around and I just had it going on my phone. You know what I mean? While I was driving, it was like I was
just
listening to
it.
radio.
Yeah,
it was great.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I like what you said with Andre James too about the relationship between center and quarterback, because he's already hanging out with Jimmy G. So he went to game. He went to game 1 or game 2 of the Golden Knights. Which I mean, they could potentially. I mean, they might run away with that Stanley Cup here very shortly.
Well, they scored 14 goals in the first 2 games or something.
Yeah, something crazy. Yeah, they're just whipping that ass. So and I think it's really cool that center and quarterback are hanging out at a successful Las Vegas outing for a professional sport. You got the Aces and you got the Golden Knights that could be running away and become Champ Vegas or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's cool that they're doing all those things, working with the community, and then also learning what winning in Vegas is all about. And the Raiders are next.
Yeah.
So hey, hit Sea of Fans right here while I go get Paul's email.
Oh, good idea. All right, let me go and do that.
Looking. He's under the gun. Body thrown.
So here at Raiders Fan Radio, we love to hear from you.
Yes.
More of you and less of us is a good thing, and there's a multitude of ways you can contact us. You can tweet us at RaidersFanRadio.com. We got the Instagrams at RaidersFanRadio.com. You can find us on the Facebooks. Just search for Raiders Fan Radio.
Yeah.
We can find us on the TikToks.
Yes.
At Raiders Fan Radio.
We haven't posted one of those in a while.
It's been a minute since we did TikTok.
But it's about time we start ticking and talking again.
Start ticking and talking again?
Yeah.
It's the off season. We got time to TikTok.
We got plenty of time for that shit.
Plenty of time to TikTok. So check us out on any of those multitude of those services. Do us a favor though, don't DM us there though. Because we don't read the DM, Instagram and stuff.
Not really.
Not really. I mean, Twitter ones will find a way to me eventually. But the best way to get a hold of us, aside from just actively, openly interacting with us on the socials, the best way to get to us is call us. It's funny, I get people on Twitter to be like, I need to come on your podcast and give you my opinion about this, because I'll say something about Derek or whatever else somebody will get all pissed off about. Whatever.
Right, sure.
And they'll be like, you need to let me on your show and I'll set you straight and tell you about. And every time I send them the phone number and no one ever calls.
Right.
So please do. If you're listening to this and you want to call the show, leave us a message. It's 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Leave us a message and we'll play your message, even if we don't agree with you, even if you are critical of our show or whatever you want to tell us, just put it on there, man, and we'll play it, man. We ain't afraid of an alternate opinion around here, or a tough subject or anything. We'll talk about anything with you.
Absolutely.
So, so bring it up and call that number, 909-345-3346. And if we play your message 3 times or more, you can become a made man or a made woman. That's basically like those are our, like the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop. The people that's got a seat at the table there when it comes to RFR, the made men and the made women, and you can become one by leaving a message 3 times, or you can email the show. Now, you have to email the show an indefinite amount of times because you say, I don't know, some people just send like a real quick one, and some people send them frequently, whatever.
Yeah.
We might have a new one to add. We got a lot of good emails.
Okay.
But anyways, if you want to email the show, email us at show. It's SHOW at RaidersFanRadio.com. That incredibly inventive email address is show. SHOW at RaidersFanRadio.com.
I didn't know you knew.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty
I
good.
understand language.
That's pretty dope.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you. There's one for you.
This means stupid.
Oh my gosh.
I won't do the others that I want to call you. I don't want to get us canceled. What was I saying? Email us at show at RaidersFanRadio.com.
Yeah, an indefinite amount of time. So if we really, really, really like your email, you just email us one, you might get made on the first one. You just never know.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of the made men, I guess probably one of the guys that's like, because Then there's even like the maid of the maid, right? You know, heck, one of them, Michelle, is now part of the show.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So shout out Michelle, and she'll be back.
If you're a maid of the maid men and then move to Middle Tennessee, you might just become one of the crew.
Just one of the crew.
Yeah.
You know, you look at, and there's no hierarchy here, but like,
No.
but like, you know, like Michelle and like Ron and Mojo and Big Raider Trucker.
Absolutely.
And like, you know what I mean? I'm leaving somebody out, so don't get your feelings hurt if I left you out. But those are just an example, like
Wyoming Raider, Ty, and you know,
Ramon, and
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like people that have just been with us and are kind of like the inner circle, right? One of those guys is overseas. Never even laid eyes on him in real life, but can't wait to. Hopefully one day we'll get a chance to meet our good friend over in the UK. He is in Shropshire, England. We call it Shropshire, Mississippi,
right?
Because Shropshire in England is west of Birmingham, and west of Birmingham in the United States is Mississippi. So we often joke around that Paul is from Shropshire, Mississippi. And it's funny, the Graveses, speaking of made people, the Graveses are from Mississippi. And when they heard that Paul was in Shropshire, Mississippi, remember Tyrone was like, man, I was looking all over the map.
Man, where is Shropshire, man? I couldn't find where it's at. Yeah.
So anyway, so our good friend Paul writes us each and every week. And so, Swag Jeff?
Absolutely. So greetings, everybody. Hope you're all well. While it's the offiest of the off season, I've been looking at one or two other Raider-related stories that are around at the minute, and our old head coach is one of them. Over the last couple of weeks, John Gruden has become a little more visible in the media again, and stories have appeared about him being involved in sort of a consultancy. Consultancy role with the Saints. This has led to speculation as to whether he can make a return to coaching in the future. Here's why I think he should take his money and retire quietly somewhere. Simply put, his coaching style and lack of people skills have shown him to be a dinosaur. When John was with us the first time, he was feisty, loud, aggressive, and fresh to the game. He fit the mold of where we were as an organization. Second time around, he was loud, aggressive, stuck in the 90s, and when seemingly needed adaptability and freshness. The modern game evolved at a hell of a rate, and the return of Chucky was always doomed to failure. Sometimes we have no idea how bad things are, what damage people are doing until they're gone, and others have been left to deal with the aftermath, which is very evident now in Henderson as Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels are trying to lay proper foundations that Gruden built on sand. Wow. If you watch the interview, what's his name? Gary and Conley did with Graphic and Wasted. I'm amazed that the Gruden era lasted as long as it did. The man management skills seem non-existent. I freely admit in saying with this with a lot of hindsight, because at the time I was happy for him to be our coach again. The only thing I was worried about was the 10-year contract. I never like, no matter who it is or what the circumstances are. I bought into the romantic notion Mark Davis had of a return to glory of the old guard at the helm. Along with Mike Mayock, I couldn't see how it would go wrong, and I got Raider drunk on the whole idea. The reality and the horrendous mess that followed the Khalil Mack trade just being the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. The good ship Raider Nation needs a modern-day aircraft carrier, not the clipper ship from the bygone age. Whatever led to the email scandal coming to light, whether Gruden was ousted by fair means or foul, it was for the good of the Raiders that it happened in the end. Of course, only time will tell how much things will get better for us. We can only trust the process. Damn it, I hate that phrase. Mark Davis's vision with Josh McDaniels seems logical, and had we replaced Gruden with Jim Harbaugh instead, wouldn't it have just been meet the new boss? He's the same as the old boss. You never really know what's going to happen in the crazy world of the NFL. So who's to say whether Gruden will find himself back in the game at some point? But I doubt he'll succeed if he does, because he's yesterday's man. Wow. Second chances are one thing if the circumstances allow, but this was his second chance and he blew it. Time to find another hobby, fella. There are some positives that he brought to the table and that he can be proud of and shouldn't be forgotten. But sometimes you just have to let things go. Knock on wood if you're with me. Stay safe, RFR family. Love your Raider Nation. His Lordship, the Royal Scribe, Paul Edgerton, Shropshire, Mississippi, Pauly Award winner 2019 and 2022, Foggy Glasses Award winner 2020, BRT Sizzler scorekeeper, proud made man, five-time times two winner of the Raiders Fan Radio BRT Sizzler Award. Paul. Hello, Paul.
Is your name Paul?
Hi, I'm Paul.
Appreciate it, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. A hell of an
Taking
email.
A flamethrower to John
My
Gruden.
gosh, I am with that. And hey,
Are you?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Explain.
I like it. I like it. Well, I mean, it was what it was, man. What would the 2021 Raiders have been if Gruden had been let go and they were riding on emotions? We finished 10-7. We made the playoffs in amazing fashion. What would have happened if that wasn't the case?
I don't know. It's they say if you're gonna have balls, you be your uncle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
So ifs are hard, but like you think about if the Ruggs situation doesn't happen, if the Gruden situation doesn't happen, like what was the continued trajectory of the team? Because even though it was slower than we all wanted, it was a ramp up. It was slowly improving, and so it's a really interesting thing to think. And I hadn't really landed on it in a way that's from a negative context until hearing Paul's email. But he makes a lot of valid points, man. And
Yeah.
that, when I was here, we let off this discussion today about the arrogance of coaches and about completely believing in their way of doing things. And, that was John. Like, I think he didn't get enough credit for his evolution. I think there was more of that than entirely being stuck in the 90s and the early 2000s. I think that he did evolve somewhat as a coach, but I think that though it's a very fair criticism though that as an overall he was a little bit of a throwback, but that's what I liked about him, and that's what I think a lot of fans, that the ones that did buy in, that we did like that kind of throwback coach, that fiery guy that was going to get in the faces of officials and, bark at his quarterback as he's coming off the field. And like, you know what I mean? Like those kind of things, like not barking of like a demeaning way, but in a heated exchange, like he did with Gannon or, Madden used to do and whatever. Madden and Stabler never really got at it, but Madden would get at officials big time. You over officious jerk. You know what I mean? Like, Madden's so famous for a lot of that stuff. So I embraced Gruden.
I embraced it, but now that but after he left, and some of the decisions that coaching staff made, crucial ones, where you look back now and go, damn, what if that was different? What if we would have grabbed that guy? I mean, like, holy cow! Like, I mean,
what if we wouldn't have traded Khalil Mack?
If we wouldn't have traded Khalil Mack, if we wouldn't have drafted Cleveland Farrell, I mean, like, you look at some of those big decisions that were made by John Gruden that, that like Paul Coyne right there, he was building foundation on sand, on some of those things. And yeah, he did evolve and he did do those things, but some crucial mistakes, could, effectively haunt the Raiders for years and years to come and, cost some people their jobs and may continue to cause people their jobs.
Absolutely.
If Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler can't get this thing solidified in the next couple years, they might both be out. And some of those, yes, I mean, a lot of it is obviously it's your own doing and things that you do. But like, if they can't right this ship and get those pieces in place, a la the foundation of the team, like, damn, I mean, this could haunt the Raiders for a really long time.
You can't have that many bad drafts.
Right.
And not have to take time to pull yourself out of it. And, the Raiders, that's where, like, when the Khalil Mack trade happened, I endorsed it. I got it because I'm like, there's so much value in draft capital that they got in return, and we didn't have to sign him to a long-term contract, so we got that money saving there to address other positions. I totally understood it. I didn't love the idea we were getting rid of my favorite player, because Khalil was my favorite player at the time that he was a Raider. Mm-hmm. I didn't love that, and from a fan perspective, I didn't like it. But as from a business perspective, I totally understood it. And then they blew it on every draft pick that we got for him.
Right. Yeah. So
other
it essentially
than maybe
became
Josh Jacobs.
In the end, it basically became trading Josh Jacobs for Khalil Mack.
And that wasn't a fair trade. No. And so when you look at it in hindsight, it's like, well, no, he shouldn't have never traded. We should have just kept his ass and let him go out there and continue to be dominant and close out football games for us. So, anyways.
Right.
I think there's a lot of fair criticisms in Paul, and I'm curious to leave us in the comments, man. Let us know what your take is now on Gruden, and I'm talking about the on the field. I'm not talking about off the field. Off the field, what he wrote in his emails, it was despicable, and he was deserved to be let go. Like that, ain't nobody defending that. But what I would like to hear is your opinion on, what do you have the Paul take? Or are you a little more, lukewarm on it like I am, to where, you kind of understood some of the things, but then you can also see the bad in it too? Or do you just think it was a mistake and, or whatever else? Or do you think that we should just keep Rich Bisaccia, which is a huge thing that's out there too, which early on, again, I was one of those guys that said, why are we getting rid of this guy? We know how much people love him. We know, we talk about Comp again. We've heard from Comp about how no one bought in the locker room more than when Rich Bisaccia was there. Everyone loved that guy. So why would you get rid of a guy like that? Well, there's a reason he's still a special teams coach.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And that's not a shot at Rich.
No.
That's just what he happens to do best.
That's what he brings to the table.
That's what he brings to the table. So anyways, let us know in the comments. Tell us what your thoughts are on that stuff. And good discussion there. Good stuff from Paul.
Good stuff.
All right, so appreciate you, Raider Nation. Appreciate you checking in with us once again here on the porch. And hopefully we'll have a new fan cave coming to you soon. But in the meantime, we'll be coming to you from porches, delis, bars, wherever we can post up and do live Raiders Fan Radio, which we will be back next week, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern, the same time that this thing is airing. Look for us there live. We're going to be giving away some really cool stuff. That right there, we're giving away that signed Rich Gannon jersey. She's a beaut, and we're going to give that thing away. All you got to do to get in on that is to donate to the foundation. You can donate offline by going to onenationfoundation.net, onenationfoundation.net, and every $10 you donate will qualify you for one poker chip, which is basically one entry into the drawing for that jersey. So thank you, Raider Nation. We love you guys so very, very much. See you next week.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you everyone that is tuned in live on the YouTube show. This is not live right now, so we can't see who's in there, but I'm sure some of the Made men are in there, so much respect to you guys. And yeah, when we're done, leave comments. We talked about a lot of things, so give us your input on those things. Hit us up, let us know. And yes, we will be live 1 week from today for episode 290 of Raiders Fan Radio. So hey, thanks everyone for tuning in for the Raiders Fan Radio Rundown. I'm Swag Jeff for my buddy Murf, where we take a lighter side journey into the dark side. Don't forget, boys and girls, what happens in Vegas is started in Oakland. Good night, everybody. God bless.
Adios, malingerers.
Next time you see me, I'll be in a hard cast. There you go.
Taking one for the team, Swag Jeff.
Well, yeah. Goodbye.
Just press the damn button, nerd.
Okay.